several decades, this landmark San Antonio homestead served as a unique museum in the famous King William district of San Antonio. Today, the home is a private residence, no longer open to the public, renovated with more modernized contemporary decoration and furniture. But this very special tour presented by the San Antonio Conservation Society will present the home decorated and furnished much as it appeared as a new home over 130 years ago. Located in the first historic district in Texas, King William is the magnificent Steve's homestead, built in 1876. It's called the Second Empire style because of that unusual roof shape. Can you see the S-shaped cornice scroll work up above? How about that wonderful metal cresting across the top that looks like lace? When you look down, you can see that the windows have metal hoods above them, and also a rope pattern wrapping around. They used jigsaws to cut out the wonderful gingerbread details you can see on the balconies. These are all typical of Victorian houses from the 1870s. This is the formal parlor, where the family would receive guests. And here is what the Steves family looked like. The house was built by Mr. and Mrs. Edward Steves in 1876, and they moved in with their 3 sons. They were immigrants from Germany that originally lived in the Texas Hill Country. Once Mr. Steves established a successful lumber mill in San Antonio, they were able to build this house. They also built homes for their 2 oldest sons that were gifted to them as wedding presents, and it helped to keep them close in the neighborhood. Edward Steves Jr. was given the house next door. He left the family lumber business and worked as a gun dealer. Albert Steves was given the house across the street, and he stayed with his brother Ernest in the family milling business and took over ownership once their father retired. Ernest Steves was the youngest child in the family. He never had a home built for him. He did not marry and lived in this homestead his entire life. This table is an example of one of Johanna's favorite things. She found it while shopping on her 25th wedding anniversary in Europe. It was made in Italy, and she had it shipped back to the United States. We used magnifying glasses to take an up-close look. What you think might be paint is actually tiny pieces of stone and semi-precious stones, a mosaic of historic scenes in Rome, Italy. Originally, the wood in this house was decorated in a pretty plain style. Even what you might think is wood is actually hand-painted to imitate expensive wood. Johanna Steves hired a painter that spent many months painting all these details onto the walls and ceilings. See the flower pattern? This is the family parlor, where the family would gather to play games, play some music, do sewing projects, read. Now notice the light fixture. This is a combination of something called a gasolier and an electrolier. It has both gas lights and electric lights, which were extremely modern for 1876. Notice the sliding pocket doors. Sometimes the room could be set up for a game night. This added a lot of flexibility to the home. On either side of the pocket doors, you see cameos of Mr. and Mrs. Steves. These were made during their 1882 trip to Europe. This is the dining room. For families like the Steves, it was common to eat on fancy porcelain dishes and to use these wonderful silver serving pieces. We call these kinds of plates and cups china because many were originally made in the country of China. But you can tell by looking at the maker's mark that these were made in Germany and later sent to the United States. The Steves brought many things from Germany with them and imported others like the china. Another tradition the Steves family had was the crown and boutonniere you see over on the buffet. This crown was to celebrate Johanna and Edward Steves' 25th wedding anniversary, their silver jubilee. There was a tradition in German Europe where the husband would give the wife a silver garland when they had their 25th wedding anniversary. This is the conservatory. It was added to the house about 1910. This is where Mrs. Steves could grow her plants. The floor was even slanted, so when she watered the plants, the water would run down a gutter and go outside. And look, it has an original ceiling fan, more than 100 years old. Does this look like a modern kitchen? What's missing? We don't have a refrigerator, but we do have a pie chest. We have a stove that burns coal, not gas or electricity. And we don't have a sink. We just have to use this wash basin. This is Johanna's Springerly rolling pin. She used it to make special traditional German cookies. This was Mr. Steve's office. He had a door directly to the outside, so he could meet business people without walking through the house. Notice the wonderful ceiling painting? There are many family photographs and heirlooms here, including lasses, books, and photographs from trips the family took. Among the family artifacts is this hairpiece made from the hair of a relative, weaved together as a memento. This was common in the 19th century, but seems strange to us today. This is a stereoscope. This was high-tech virtual reality of the 19th century, looking at images in 3 dimensions. And this is the main hallway of the Steves homestead. Notice this beautiful stairwell that reaches way up above the 14-foot ceilings. The stairway has a warrior on the newel post that was ordered from the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition of 1876. The balustrade and handrail was also ordered from a catalog and runs continuously all the way up to the 3rd floor. Look at these wonderful Victorian toys. This is what children would have played with back in the late 19th century. They could have a toy stove just like a real stove, dolls, and carts to push them around. See all the switches that powered the lights on and off? That was very modern in the late 19th century. This house had everything: running water, electricity, all the latest in technology. This is Ernest's bedroom. It has an armoire, a closet, and a sink. These closets are small, as often you would not have many clothes, or they would be hung facing outwards. He had a sink, but he didn't originally have a bathroom. In fact, if it was cold, rainy, or dark outside, he might have to use this chamber pot before morning. This is Johanna's bedroom, as it would have looked in the late 19th century. Notice she also has her own sink and closet. It was very unusual to have a closet in 1876. Most people just used an armoire or a chest. The Steves homestead had modern plumbing. It was very unusual to have a bathroom inside your house, and even more unusual to have sinks in the bedrooms. The neighborhood of the Steves homestead is called King William. Many of the people who lived here were German, and they settled this area beginning in the 1860s. Even though they were right along the river, it was not a place for swimming. But the Steves had one of the most modern things of the early 20th century. Mrs. Steves built a natatorium, an indoor swimming pool. In 1910, she had to dig her own well to get water for the swimming pool. She would swim in the pool, then invite neighborhood children every afternoon around 3 o'clock. In 1952, the Steves homestead was given to the Conservation Society of San Antonio. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. Thanks for joining us on this virtual tour of just one of our city's cherished treasures. We hope you'll join us again for more heritage education tours of the enchanted city, San Antonio.